This is Candid Wisdom, the podcast, a safe place where we can discuss church culture and the need for reformation in the church culture. I am Twyla Williams, your host, and I have a lot on my mind today. I have a lot on my mind today, so please come in and join me. Have a seat, get some coffee, and relax because we've got a lot to chat about today. The church culture is at the top of my mind. Actually, it's the thing that burns in my spirit all the time because there's a lot that needs to happen there. And I remember like pre-COVID, right? Before COVID, I used to tell people, you don't have to be in church every Sunday to be a faithful Christ follower. Now, I know all the stuff that goes along with it and we should be gathering together. But then I asked myself, okay, I know we should not forsake the gathering together, but like if four people got together, would that be enough? If four Christians got together and opened the Bible and read it and discussed it, um, and prayed for each other, would that be enough? Like how many people need to gather for this to be an effective meeting together to encourage each other? And where do we get the idea that we were supposed to gather on Sunday and that it was supposed to be in this facility, and there's supposed to be praise and worship and like now I know that the Bible gives us freedom to make up our traditions, but when you tell somebody this is Christianity, coming to this facility every Sunday and doing this A, B, and C, when you tell people and teach people that that is what Christianity is, then you limit them in their relationship with God. Because then they start to think, okay, well, if I can't come to that place and sing those songs and see those people, then am I still a Christian? Am I still, do I still belong to God? Am I still a part of the family? And that's a very important message, right? Because the first thing that, if you ask somebody whether or not they're a Christian, the first thing they're going to say is, I go to church, or I try to go to church, or, I go to church every other Sunday or when I can. It's all about showing up in that facility. Now, thankfully, things are changing. I am starting to hear people say more about, I go to God first. I pray about everything before I make my decisions. And that's more of the language that we want to hear. That is more important than whether or not you show up to a facility. But where did this idea come from? That's the question. Because think about this, like everything that's being revealed right now, every system that we are under right now has been orchestrated to control us, to enslave us, to dumb us down, right? And to make us be in fear, anxiety, and division. That's just the truth of it all. No matter where you are in the country, no matter where you are on this planet, leadership has orchestrated this narrative of fear, enslavement, and control. And we see it in every single system that exists. So why wouldn't the enemy, and remember, we only have one enemy. We only have one enemy, and that is the serpent of old, Satan himself. And why wouldn't the enemy infiltrate the very organization that is supposed to bring you closer to God? I mean, if as a strategist, if I'm in a war with somebody, that's the first thing that I'm going to do. I'm going to try to infiltrate their camp, right? Who can I get on the inside to help me bring down my enemy? So to think that the devil hasn't infiltrated the church, infiltrated the organization of God's people would be so naive. It's almost unfathomable, right? And I knew that. I think we've all known that on some level, but how deep have we been infiltrated? How far has the enemy gotten past our lines? Well, last week I talked about the creation of seminary and the narrative that was pushed in seminary. First of all, they pushed out all of the genuine people who just had a heart for God and wanted to teach the Bible and actually pastor the people, right? We talked about pastor and how they're supposed to care for the individuals in their congregation. If you have more than 100 people in your congregation, it's not even humanly possible for you to maintain those types of relationships on that level. So now, when you got pastors who have thousands of people, obviously, there's gaps, right? Care is not being taken. So with the invention of seminary, first of all, it's just like a college, so you've got to be ready to pay. There's money involved. Wherever there's money, you can best believe the enemy is in there, you know, mixing things up. So you got to go to college, and then there's a curriculum. Well, who created that curriculum? Well, we know the elites were behind the curriculum, right? After doing the research, always traces back to one of those big names like the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, specifically the Rothschilds created the seminary. And like I said before, go and do your research on that. Like go down that rabbit hole because it's a deep one and it's scary in there, but for all of you who genuinely love God and want to do his will and his work, you need to be informed. I mean, take it slowly if you have to, but open your mind and start to understand that everything that has been done has a purpose to it. And now the Lord is waking us up. He's taken the blinders off so we can see that indeed there is a Pharisaic spirit in the family of God. It is definitely there. It was here when Jesus was here, and he called it out. He called it out. So let's read about that over here in Matthew chapter 23. And this is Jesus' warning against hypocrisy. And I want you guys to listen to this very carefully because as I go forward, I'm telling us that we need to do the same thing. Okay? Then Jesus said to the crowds and to his disciples, the teachers of the law and the Pharisees sit in Moses' seat. So you must be careful to do everything they tell you, but do not do what they do, for they do not practice what they preach. They tie up heavy, cumbersome loads and put them on other people's shoulders, but they themselves are not willing to lift a finger to move them. Everything they do is done for people to see. They make their, I don't know what this word is. I can't pronounce that word. Wide and the tassels are, but it's basically their garment. On their garments long. They love the place of honor at the banquets, and most important, seats in the synagogue. They love to be greeted with respect in the marketplace and to be called rabbi by others. And we see a lot of this same spirit in the pastors today, in leadership today. I was an administrator at a church, right? And there was a pastor who refused to come to a meeting because we didn't give put the right title on his invitation. My name is Bishop Malloy, and you didn't call me Bishop, so therefore that's disrespectful, and I'm not coming to your conference. I'm not going to be a part of this. I mean, and that's just like a tenth, like a sliver of what type of attitudes you see in these roles. And I don't want to hear this you're an accuser of the brethren thing. I think that is a shield that we use when we don't want to confront what we know is true. It's like keeping that hush hush, Uncle so and so. Let's not talk about that because nobody wants to deal with it. But I'm telling you, until we deal with it, until we open our eyes and actually speak out against it, we are running the risk of being the ones who were fooled. Remember? Jesus said the deception would be so strong that even the elect would be fooled. Well, count me amongst one of them, because before I started to look outside of what I was being told, I thought that I was being told the truth. And I thought there was no other way. Oh, well, the pastor said it, so it must be true. And every pastor that I speak to says the same thing, not knowing that they're all dipping from the same well. They're saying the same thing because they're all going to the same source, and the source is corrupt. The source is corrupt. Don't know if you know this or not, but there is a website. I was listening to the pastors on the radio, and like one week everybody was talking about Noah and the ark. And I'm like, wow, God must be really speaking to the pastors, because every time I turn the radio, every pastor is talking about Noah. This is so amazing. Look how God works. Little did I know, when I got into that position, there's a website that every pastor goes to. And if you don't know if you don't have a sermon of your own, you can go to this website, and then it will create a sermon for you, and you can just preach that. No wonder why everybody sounds the same and saying the same thing, because they're all dipping from the same well. And there are churches who, they have a head church, and we talked about this. They have like this campus and that campus, and they're all over the world. And so one of the things that I used to do as an administrator is pull down that sermon and send it to 10 different churches, 10 different pastors. They all had the same sermon. Am I saying that there's anything wrong with that? Not necessarily. I mean, it's efficient, right? It is a business, it's a corporation. So, yeah, that's efficiency. But what if the well is poisoned? The wrong information is being disseminated, and nobody's questioning it because it's the pastors, right? That's that Pharisee spirit. So let's read over here in staying in Matthew chapter 23, and Jesus is warning us about this, right? Let's start it in verse 13. Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You shut the door of the kingdom of heaven in people's faces. You yourselves do not enter, nor will you let those enter who are trying to. See, Jesus is saying there are people like you and I who want to do the work of Jesus, who want to be a part of the kingdom, who want to, we're there because we love God and we love people, presumably, and we really want to do this thing. We want to walk the walk of Christianity. But if our leadership is corrupt, then how do we even know if we're doing the right things? Have you ever thought about that? Like, why is it that people are in church every Sunday, but they're still bitter? They're still angry. They're still hateful. They're still, I give an example of my neighbors, and I hope they're not listening, but it's like they get up and I see them get ready for church every Sunday, and their kids are all dressed up, and I know they're going off to church. And then I speak to them like, hey, good morning. And it's crickets. And so then, a friend of mine says to me, well, oh, I'm like, my neighbors don't speak to me. And she's like, well, maybe they're racist. And I'm like, I don't even question. I don't even say like, oh, that can't be true. They're Christians. They can't be racist, right? Because they could be. That's what I'm talking about. No change in the way you treat other people. No change in the way that you show up to the point where you don't even speak to another person who said good morning to you, yet you get up and you clean yourself up, you put on your Sunday best and you go to church? And does it change you in any way? Does it change the way that you treat people? And I think that this was done on purpose. That we don't talk enough about a changed heart, a changed spirit. We don't talk enough about loving our enemy. And I know people will say, well, my pastor does, but why isn't it infiltrating the spirit of God's people? If we were all in love with humanity like Jesus was, the world would be a different place. Do you understand? Like things would be happening for the poor, for the needy, for the widows. This is what Jesus says. This is what the work of being a Christian is. And of course, if you're somebody who is greedy, if you're somebody who's a narcissist, if you're somebody who wants to be in control of others, what position are you going to be most attracted to? It's just like somebody who's a child abuser. Generally, they're going to go into a position where they have access to children. So a greedy person is going to go into a position where they have access to money. And where else do you have access to tax-free donated dollars? Faithfully donated. As part of your literal religion, it is to give to the church. And we wonder why so many of the leaders are corrupt. Because they literally have free money. They don't have to be accountable to anybody. And now there's evidence that there's money laundering happening in the churches. I know that there was personally two pastors that had to step down for embezzlement. And God only knows how many misuse of church funds, cases there are out there. Because it's all unchecked. It's your money, you do what you want with it, and most of them do exactly that. So what type of people are attracted to that position? And then we as, blind followers, well, he's the pastor and he must know best. He's close to God, and Jesus is telling them just because he knows the word and knows how to teach it doesn't mean he's a doer of the word. And how many times are we going to watch pastors be indicted, pastors step down, pastors fall before we realize there might be something wrong here. We might have let the wrong people into the leadership role. And by the very definition of what a church is and how they can collect money and so forth, we might even be attracting the wrong people. And the enemy knows that. The enemy knows it very well. And I believe it's why the system was set up the way it was by the government. That whole 501c thing is a lure to greedy, unbalanced people. Just organize yourself, teach them this false doctrine, and, keep all the money you want. No problem. Just don't let them enter into the kingdom of God, and don't let them be effective, and don't teach them how to be more like Jesus. That's all we require. Let's read about this over in Matthew chapter 25, starting in verse 31. When the Son of Man comes in his glory and all the angels with him, he will sit on his glorious throne. All the nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate the people one from another, as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. He will put the sheep on his right and the goats on his left. Then the king will say to those on his right, "Come, you who are blessed by my Father, take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. I needed clothes, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you looked after me. I was in prison, and you came to visit me." Jesus is telling us what the requirement is for being a Christ follower. It is not showing up on Sunday in your best clothes, singing songs, and giving money. These are the requirements of being a Christ follower. Feeding people, taking care of them, looking after the sick, looking after those who are in prison, right? And the rest of it. Like the Lord says, when you did that for anybody, you did it for me. I'll read it here. Then the righteous will answer him, "Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? When did we see you a stranger and invite you in, or needing clothes and clothe you? When did we see you sick or in prison and go to visit you?" The king will reply, "Truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did it for me." This is what is required of us. And yet, in every city, all over the world, there are people in need, and there are thousands and thousands of professors of Christ doing nothing. Yes, there are some doing some, but for the most part, no. Okay. So, how do we respond to this? I once had a very wise boss, and he said to me, if you're going to bring me a problem, make sure that you come with a solution. Otherwise, you're just part of the problem. And if you don't have a solution, you haven't thought about it long enough, right? And like that piece of advice has sat with me for my entire life. So whenever I bring up a issue, or when I start thinking about this is not right, I'm always thinking about what can we do about it. It's not enough to just point it out. We need to know, well, what next? What is the solution to this? How do we get these corrupt leaders out of their positions so that we can start to be the people of God that we truly want to be, and start to do the things that are required of us as a Christian. And no, we are not saved by our works. We are saved for good works. Okay? Don't get it twisted. I'm not saying you have to do good things to get into heaven. What I'm saying is God called you out of the world, marked you as holy and sanctified, set apart, so that you can partner with Him to have His will be done on earth as it is in heaven. His will is not for you to show up on Sunday. His will is for you to be more like Jesus every day, to be transformed into Jesus. Jesus being the perfect man, human. And we need to be more like Him, not comparing ourselves to other people. Definitely not comparing ourselves to the world, because we know they're the lost. We call them the lost. And by the way, I'll just go off on a little bit of a tangent about that. It's like, being mad at the world is pointless, because the point is they are controlled by the enemy. Some of them willingly, some of them unwillingly. But our heart should be empathetic towards them. And our mission remains the same. This is why we preach and teach the gospel, because we want them to be saved. We want them to be in a relationship with the King, because that is the only thing that's going to change society. That is the only thing that's going to change society, is that we love each other, we take care of each other, we pray for our enemy, we feed our enemy, and we love them, and we tell them about the hope that we have, about the glory and the grace and the mercy that we've received. Not to beat them over the head with it, like, you need to get saved, blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, hey, I know life is hard. I know things are not like what you think they should be, but there's a hope for the future and a hope for right now. God is a right now God, an on time God. He'll help you right this minute. If we could get these leaders out of the office preaching prosperity to everybody, making everybody think that, oh, once you get in with God, you're going to have so much favor over your life. The good things are just going to follow you, and it's going to be all good. You're going to have lots of money. What page of the Bible is that? And why do we keep allowing people to preach that? And now you've got pastors out here preaching political points and putting people down, literally telling people to shut up. And what? Do you know that you're being recorded? Like, what are you doing? You're supposed to be loving your enemy. I don't care what they've done, what they've said, how you feel about them. Why aren't you teaching us how to love our enemy? Not telling people to shut up. Okay. On to the solution now. I would say this. If, number one, leaders cannot take money from the church or donations. You want to solve this problem of greedy, if your pastor's a greedy person, or, just there for about the money and about the fame, don't allow them to take any of it. The minute you introduce money into the equation, there is a tendency for things to go lopsided. Because when you have to make a decision about something based on whether or not it's going to affect your income, you automatically don't always make the right choice, because you're involved. Your family's involved. Your household, your manners of living are involved. So when somebody comes to you and says, "Hey, I need you to speak out against this and that," right? And then you're like, and if you don't, then, there won't be as many donations this week. That was another thing that I learned as an administrator in the church is like there was a time to like preach about tithing, usually around the first of the year, when people make their New Year's resolutions. It's all orchestrated on that website. Oh yeah, it's a new year. People are making their, commitments to do things differently. Most people decide that they're going to tithe regularly at the beginning of the year. So at the beginning of the year, it's time for you to start preaching about. Bring out the sermons on tithing, uh that one scripture over in Micah, the Old Testament. Time to hit that hard. And if you don't, you know what I mean, donations will be down and that affects the budget. Why is this part of God's work? Why are we even thinking about these things? The moment that you allow money into the decision making process, it's going to be a corrupt process, period. So, how do pastors make money? Well, they do what the disciples did. They keep a job, keep an outside job or some sort of work that pays you so that the money that you take in from your congregation doesn't affect your pockets. It keeps you free. You don't have to be beholden to anybody and their opinions. It allows you to make decisions without thinking about whether or not it's going to affect your mortgage payment. And if you want to know whether or not your pastor's corrupt, why don't you go to him and tell him, you know what, Pastor, I'm not going to be tithing this month. I'm going to take my money and I'm going to actually give it to the single mom that I know who needs, food because her SNAP benefits are cut off and she needs shoes and diapers for the baby. So I'm going to do that instead and see what he says. Just like test the waters and see what he says. Because if he starts with the, oh, no, no, sister, blah, 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 you got to be faithful, all of that, that's a little clue that maybe there's some infiltration happening there, right? The other thing that would help weed out some of these people is that if there's a board of supervisors, like a board that's diverse, that's not made up of his friend group or made up of all the people who agree with him, but a board of people who have diverse backgrounds and views, maybe elected by the congregation, but definitely not handpicked by the pastor. Somebody who might actually come against something that he suggests. I think that every church should have a board of supervisors, a board of advisors. So the decision making is taken out of the hand of one person. And this would keep people from, who are in power play, from being in those positions. If you're going to be taken to task, if you're going to be questioned, if you're going to be held accountable, then you just automatically make different decisions. That's number 2 on my list. Number 3, and I think this is so very important, is that everything every time your pastor has a sermon or he teaches something, there should be a follow up testing of that scripture, testing of that word. Like that should be the Bible study for the week. Let's go back and see if what pastor said is biblically defensible. Let's look up the scriptures that he gave us. Somebody can record it so easy. You can get transcripts and go line by line as a congregation and hold everything up to a biblical mirror that your pastor says. Because some of these pastors and preachers are out here talking nonsense, absolute craziness. I make it a point to go over some of the mega churches' sermons from the Sunday. And some of the things that I hear are cringe-worthy. And they're preaching to thousands and thousands of people. And I just want to set God's people free so we can actually start to see changes in society. We can actually start to see things moving in a different direction, which is very, very important. So we need to test every word that the pastor says. And if you're not doing anything wrong, then there should be no problem with that. Every Bible study should be whether or not our pastor is telling us the truth. Now, I don't know if you guys know this or not, but they're starting to enact laws that will allow your pastors and your spiritual leaders to give political opinions. This is being done on purpose. It is a tool of the enemy, and it is wrong. It should not be done. Everybody's political views should be a private matter. Because once your pastor starts telling you who to vote for, who to watch out for, guess what? The same thing that's happening with these influencers who are being paid thousands of dollars to make videos to promote this product or promote this person and it seems like, oh, it's no really big deal. It's just, I just happen to use this. All manipulation. This is why they're called influencers. Because they change the mind of the people who watch them, who partake in their content. And the same is true for your pastor. You think the minute your pastor endorses this candidate or that candidate, that half the people in the congregation or more aren't going to go support that person? And then if you know that you have a tool like that, what would a politician do? Might they go and whisper in the ear of that pastor? Might they give him some special gift? Oh, it's not bribe. It's not a money. I just want you to have this Mercedes, as a token of my appreciation for your support. Here's a Rolex or whatever. Because the enemy knows what the pastor wants. We're going to take you on a little trip over here. Actually, we're going to have a whole convention of pastors come out to Hawaii. And yeah, that's another thing that happens in the church right now, right this day. We're going to have all you pastors from the Southern Baptist, blah, 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 come over here to this convention. Oh, we don't want to influence you, It's just, it's pastors' appreciation. But here's this product, and here's this service, and here's this thing. And, if you happen to mention that when you go back and preach on Sunday, what a great time you had at this resort, it's not up for me to say. No politics. The pastor should not be able to speak on what they believe politically. And then when you hear that, beware, okay? Beware. Because if they start to do that, that's not a mature thing for someone to do. And I would say that they're not using spiritual discernment to do something like that, right? Okay, number 5. We need to hold pastors accountable for their relationships. We've all heard the stories of someone who's serving the pastor in this capacity or another, and then they're a little bit too close, and then some type of affair happens, and now we've got scandal. And the pastor's, of course, in the girl's ear or whatever. Oh, this is different. It's not like they wouldn't understand, but we're going to keep this between us. No, absolutely not. And every Sunday or once a month, it should be a point to say these types of relationships are unacceptable. And if you're in a relationship like that with anybody in leadership, we need to know about it. See, it's the silence that keeps us trapped. It's the secrecy that the enemy uses to enslave us. But when we start to speak out against these things, normalize the fact that we're checking relationships, we're talking to his administrator, we're talking to the secretary, we're talking to the altar boy, we're talking to these people to make sure everything is on the up and up. Yes, we want to uncover corruption. Absolutely. We want to know. Because we want the right people in leadership. This is a life or death situation. This is not for play. This is real. These are our leaders, and we've been infiltrated, like I said in the beginning. The enemy is on purpose about sending people into the church and having them do nefarious things to what? Take down the reputation of God's people, cause division, cause fear, to sow abuse. Of course he would. Of course he would. And I used to think about that, like, why are there so many priests in the Catholic Church who have been PDF files? What is that? Why is that reputation there? Of course. The enemy sent them. The enemy sent them, and he's had them in place for decades. And look at how many people have been broken by that. How many children are living with the after effects of that? And even still to this day. And then what? Just move them from congregation to congregation and move them around, and that's not of God. That was straight out of the depths of hell. And the enemy will continue to do these things as long as we stay silent. As long as we don't say anything about it, don't talk about it, don't do anything about it, it's all going to keep going. And it's not just the Catholic Church. This type of thing is happening everywhere. Yes, they get a lot of the attention because it benefits the enemy to bring them down in the media, while the rest of the churches doing the exact same thing don't get all that attention, because we need that to stay underground so that it can continue unchecked. Because breaking children before they have an opportunity to form an opinion about the Lord is the enemy's specialty. That's for another episode. That's for another time, but it's his specialty. It's his signature. Okay. The other thing we have to do is stop the cover up culture. When something happens, when we know something to be true, then it needs to be said immediately in front of the congregation. Never mind the reputation of the person, okay? Never mind that. Okay, if it turns out that it's not true after the investigation's done, then we, as adults, come and say, you know what, it wasn't true. We do apologize, Pastor so and so, for that accusation that was brought against you, but this is the way we handle things. And maybe, just maybe, we could be mature enough to not pass judgment until we have all the facts. But to sit back and allow things to go unchecked and unsaid because we don't want people to jump to conclusions is ridiculous. And this is what starts the cover up culture. And this is what promotes cover up culture. When we're not willing to speak out. Because of what? It all leads back to manipulation. It all leads back to corruption. It all leads back to money. Reputation, right? The other thing we need to do is we need to have, and these are all points to weed out that Pharisee spirit in the church, in the culture. These are all points to weed that out, because God is calling us to a different level of Christianity, guys. If in case you haven't noticed, He's calling us to a different level. A different way to walk, a different way to be, a different way to show up. And He's been doing this, and you will see, trust me when I tell you, you will see that the layers are being peeled, the veil is being lifted, and you are starting to see where the corruption is and how high it goes up in the people of God, in the church, in what we call mainstream Christianity. You will see it. The time is short. So God is like, boom, boom, boom. You're going to see leaders fall. You're going to see people with names that you would have never thought. You're going to see them fall. Trust me, okay? I'm telling you, this is going to happen. So financial transparency has to be a priority for the Christian organizations. We want to see where the money goes. We want to see. If you don't have anything to hide, what's the problem? Put your budget up on a website. Here's what we bring in. Here's where the money goes. This goes to the mortgage. This goes to pay the lights. This goes to the employees. This goes to mission work. Blah, blah, blah. What is the problem? Show us. Show your members. Show the world. You're God's people. If anything, we should be the guiding light of what efficient financial stewardship looks like. We should be teaching the corporations, hey, this is how you handle things. This is what's fair. This is what's right. Right? We have access to righteousness. Why wouldn't we be transparent in our finances? Where does the money go? You shouldn't have anything to hide. And membership into a congregation should be based on how transparent they are with their finances. You should be making the decision of whether or not you're going to join a Christian congregation based on their transparency. And then when that becomes the standard, then we know that we've got the right people in place. And there are organizations out there who are doing great work at this, holding people accountable. Okay? Honestly. I this one should go without saying, but honestly, I believe that our pastors must have mental health evaluations, and they all should be connected with some sort of therapy. We should know how they've processed their past, their childhood relationships, their anything that might be going on with them, because it's a heavy duty responsibility. And I think that all leadership should have some sort of counseling, somewhere where they can go to be refreshed, to get advice, and to process. I believe this for everybody. I mean, I don't think everybody should be in therapy, but you should definitely have some sort of support system, whether it's your family or your friend group or somewhere where you can go to get sound advice, good counsel. And the Bible tells us that, right? That we should surround ourselves with good counsel. And so I would say, this is a question that needs to be put to the leadership. Like, what is your support system? Where do you go for sound counsel? You need to know these things, guys. And once these become standard practices, then we can start to change the culture. This is when reformation starts. We have to have reformation. The church's reputation is in the gutter, right? There are people who are like, I'm never going back there. I can't stand organized religion. I love God, but I would never go to church. Yeah, I hear that all the time. And it shouldn't be. These things shouldn't be. We should be the shining light of humanity, the example of what good human behavior looks like, what love feels like, what acceptance feels like. We should be non judgmental. We should be loving our enemies, praying for those who persecute us. We should be the kindest people, the one that anybody can talk to. We should be greeting people on the street, in the grocery stores. You guys know, if you've listened to me for any amount of time, love has to be what leads us and what guides us. I want to read about the rich man and the kingdom of God. And I think this is so important. And it speaks to what Jesus' heart is about. And let's read about it in Matthew chapter 19, starting in verse 16. Just then a man came up to Jesus and asked, Teacher, what good thing must I do to get eternal life? Why do you ask me about what is good? Jesus replied. There is only one who is good. if you want to enter life, keep these commandments. Which ones? He inquired. Jesus replied, you shall not murder, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not steal, you shall not give false testimony, honor your father and your mother, and love your neighbor as yourself. All these things I have kept, the young man said. What do I still lack? And Jesus answered, if you want to be perfect, go sell your possessions and give to the poor, and you will have treasures in heaven. Then come, follow me. When the young man heard this, he went away sad because he had great wealth. Then Jesus said to his disciples, truly I tell you, it is hard for someone who is rich to enter the kingdom of heaven. See, these are the things that are important to Jesus. He's telling him, this guy straight up asked him, like, how do I enter the kingdom? He said, keep all the commandments and give to the poor. Detach yourself from the thing that you rely on the most. Be willing to give up that thing that you think is keeping you safe, keeping you whole, keeping you at the top, right? Jesus knew exactly what that wealth meant to that rich young ruler and why he can't give it up. He knew exactly what was going on. So what is it that we're clinging to here? What is it that we're not willing to give up so that we can do the right thing and enter into life? We can't be afraid to allow something to be taken away, torn down, redone, so we can get to the truth. Get to what Jesus actually wanted for us. We're going to have to do it, and we can go through the window or the wall, but it's going to be done because God is not going to tolerate this lukewarm, dumbed down Christianity anymore. It's just not. It's over. It's over. So either we can face up to the truth and be out in front of it and be prepared, or we can watch the walls crumble all around us and be caught up in the rubble. Those are the choices because the system will come down, period. And I know if you have a heart like mine, you want to do the right thing. You want to see change. You're sitting there like I was sitting there for years thinking, this can't be it. This can't be all there is to life. This can't be all there is to faith. This can't be it. And you were right. There's so much more. There's world changing, earth moving, life changing things that are in store for us. And I can't wait for us to get there, all of us together. Now, for our pastors out there, please consider that you have been given the wrong information. Just consider it. Be a skeptic of your own teaching. You know what Steve Greggs likes to say? He's like, I'm a slow learner, right? It takes him a while to like go over some things and change his mind about things. But when he does see that he had something wrong, which he was a dispensationalist for years, and he changed his mind because the word backed a different way of seeing things. He admitted, you know what? I was wrong. I believed this way for a long time. This is why I believe this way. And now I believe something different. And this is why I believe that way. It's okay to say that we got it wrong as long as we know that we're moving on to the right thing now. So that's what I want to say for my pastors. Review what you've been taught, hold it up to the mirror of the Bible, and see if what you are teaching is the truth, okay? And then please stop peddling fear. It's okay to talk about hell. It's okay to talk about the, end of the world and the second coming, whatever you believe, but don't try to send your congregation away in fear. This is a tool of the enemy. Okay? Also, in the church, please stop telling people that marriage is the ultimate goal. You got to find a partner. You got to be married. That's all a social construct. The Bible does not say that you have to be married. Nowhere, it's okay. And in fact, Paul recommends that you stay single if you can and serve God. Because when you become married, you have different priorities. You guys have read this yourself with your own eyes. But we're constantly telling people, got to find the right partner, you get your man. And no, that's not the goal of life. That's a social construct. And we can get into that, why they did that and what's the purpose of that. But another time for that. Call out the people who are preaching prosperity gospel, please. Some people do a really great job of this. I don't want to see my pastor smiling and cheesing up to next to some famous prosperity preacher. I don't want to see that. Just stop it. The fame is not worth it. The notoriety is not worth it. It's not worth it. Do not be defiled by that. And in fact, expose them. You guys know that the Bible doesn't teach that prosperity preaching. So we need to do that. Signal it out, okay? And then stop pushing the world's narrative on success. Like the house, the car, the job, the this and that. That's all the world's social construct of success. Our definition of success is quite different. It's about service. It's about other people. It's about love. It's about charity. It's about contribution. It's about giving. That is a successful life according to Jesus. Remember? When you fed him, when you clothed him, when you took care of him, that's the success that Jesus is talking about. And we need to be teaching that in Sunday school to our children. We all have to call out fake teachers, frauds. There should be a website who tracks, and maybe there is. I don't know. I don't know what I don't know. So if you guys know of a website that tracks all of these hypocrites and all of these fake and phony, fraudulent pastors, let me know about it. Put it in the comments so I can go take a look at it. Because I'd like a place where we all know, okay, and list out all these churches that are phony baloney and full of, false teaching. Because as children of God, we should know where to avoid. We're in a war, so where are the landmines? I don't want all of these new people who are being converted right now to end up in one of these fraudulent churches. And let's spend more time teaching people how to love their enemy. It's easy to say, oh, love your enemy, love your enemy. But like, you got to teach them how to do it. How do we love our enemy? It's not a warm, fuzzy kind of, oh, I know you like cut my tires, but you killed my daughter, but you know what? I just get all fuzzy inside when I think about you because I love you. No. Loving our enemy means that we recognize that you are a soul that Jesus paid for with his life. That God loves you. Therefore, I love you. Loving our enemy means that we recognize that we only have one true enemy, and that person is under the control of him. We don't want the devil to have any souls. We want to snatch every single one of them back from him. That's what it means to love our enemy. We don't want anybody to go to hell. We don't want anybody to be eternally separated from God and from the family of God forever. So we pray for them and we love them and we give them the gospel. We want them to love Jesus. We want them to know that they are loved by Jesus and by God. And I'll just, wrap it up here. Let's get prepared for the future. Let's get prepared to be outside of the world's economy. Let's get prepared to be outside of the world's way of teaching. You know how the world will look for through the resumes and be like, oh, this person's from Harvard, we're going to hire them, or Yale, oh, absolutely, Stanford. We should be looking for everybody who's been homeschooled, pull their resume to the top. If you decided not to go to college at all and be part of the programming, pull that resume to the top. Those are the people that Christians should be hiring because we know what's happening in these colleges. They're being indoctrinated. And if you don't believe me, I don't know what to tell you. Like, go do the research. The whole school system is an indoctrination. The entire thing. So we need to be ready to live outside of this social structure, outside of this, this world leadership thing that they're trying to pull together. God's people need to be prepared to live outside of that. We need to start growing our own food so that first of all, the food is poisoned. The food that they're actually feeding us, the ones that land in the grocery store and all that processed garbage is all poison. Literally. There are things here in America that other countries won't even allow because it's toxic. And yet it's all available to us. It's like we're just guinea pigs here, like to do anything to us. All of these vaccines, they're all toxic. Why are we giving a newborn baby aluminum that could kill an adult in the vaccine? Yeah. We gotta live smarter, grow our own food, know how to purify our own water sources, know how to use solar and wind and natural energies for our electricity, put together jobs and trainings that we can use to benefit each other. Teach culinary art skills, how to sew, All of those things that build, and unfortunately, yeah, we're gonna have to let go of some of the, futuristic tech things. Okay? But we know that those things are not good for us anyway. And I'm not talking about going back to Little House on the Prairie days, but it's going to be something like letting go of this. We have to get outside of this system, and we're going to be happier for it. We're going to be more relaxed. We're going to be more in love. We're going to be with less anxiety and less fear. You can't be afraid of it. You got to go to it. Back a little bit in time where we grew and harvested our own food, so we knew exactly what we were eating and where it came from. We swap services, we make our own clothes. Like, it doesn't have to be like Little House on the Prairie, but it doesn't have to be like it is now. We're just a part of the world. And Jesus has called us out of the world to do something differently, to offer an alternate lifestyle. And we will do it. It will happen. And whether or not you're a part of it is the choice that you need to make. Okay? Thank you so much for listening to me. I'm happy to be doing this work. I plan to continue to be doing this work, continue to be going live. And if you've stayed with me the whole time or if you're here now, please subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell so that you know when I go live again, which will probably be maybe sometime this week, maybe next Sunday. I don't know. I'm like feeling this whole thing out and deciding as I go what works best. Leave me a comment. I read all of the comments and try to respond. I'm excited to see who's here, who's listening, and what you've taken away from it. And so please do like, subscribe, and share this video. And I will see you soon. I'll see you next Sunday. Hey, by the way, go and watch my other videos. If you like what you heard here, some of this stuff has been, I've done a deeper dive on some of the things that I touched on today. So if you go back and like watch my older videos, you can hear my, that's my puppy. Um, anyway, you can hear, some of the things that I've said and yeah. So let's do that. And you guys go out, enjoy the rest of your day. I love you. I'm going to be praying for you. Be praying for me. And I thank you so much for being here. God bless.